Okay, it's likely in the course of making nonlinear stories with Unity, you're going to want something like a floating panel where there might be some text, there might be some images, there might even be video or something playing on it. Now we'll explore just making those and even making them reusable in this video. But later on, we'll have to actually figure out how then to make them show when I click on something or interact with something. So the first thing that we have to do is figure out what we want our panel to look like. And what I've already done is I've created this ping in Photoshop. It's semi-transparent. I just have this border that's a little darker, and you'll see why. And I have these rounded corners. And so I already drug it into my assets panel. And when you drag it in, it will just come in and it'll just be at this default setting. And so what you want to do is change that to a sprite, or right here. Make sure you have this set at full rect, and then go in. Well, first you have to apply those changes. Now go into the Sprite Editor, and in the Sprite Editor you'll see these green. They'll be kind of at the edges here like this in the beginning. And so the purpose of this is what you're doing is making what's called a 9-tile sprite. And the reason for this is that when things stretch, it won't stretch the corners. The corners will go as is. The top parts will stretch, or the middle parts will stretch, and this middlest part can stretch or tile. You can really decide what you want. We can just leave things default. So I'm just going to simply drag these out, or actually I'll just go down here and just type 20 in each of these, right? Which I could have just done, whoops, I typed 200, right? So just to show you, right, I could just grab this, drag it to where it's at 20, right? So that now I know which part is going to do what. You have to go right here to this button and hit apply. It's kind of hard to see. And you can close that panel. So now that's set up. Now there is this pixels per unit thing that we can play with, but I'm not going to yet. I'm going to do this somewhere else. So the next thing we want is we want to set up this panel. And so I'm going to go up to Game Object UI, and right here there's this one called Panel. Now notice when you create this panel, it automatically creates this canvas and this event system. Don't need to worry what this event system is yet. This canvas is basically like the holder of all the things that are going to be in there, and the panel is this panel you see here with this kind of semi-transparent background. Now the thing is, right now, the reason it's so big is that these types of panels, this canvas by default, is in what's called screen space overlay. So that means your screen, your computer screen or your VR screen, this is kind of like attached to the viewport. But we don't want that. We want to be in world space. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and change it to world space. And now nothing really happens. Now you will see this little exclamation point, and that means we should attach our camera to it so it knows what camera is going to go intervene with it. So in our first person controller, we have a first person character has the camera in it, so we can make sure we have canvas selected and then just drag this right over into the camera, and that takes care of that. So now we have to figure out how big we want our canvas to be. Now obviously right now this is way too big, right? This would be for a screen. So we want to bring it down to more of our world scale. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it a width of 10 and a height of 5, and I'm even going to give it a position of 0, 0, kind of by where our camera is, and just double click on the canvas to kind of bring me down to see what's happening here. So whoops, I don't want to stretch it or anything yet. I'm going to just move it up into place. And now you see it's got the background image is kind of screwed up right now, and we can fix that in a minute using this canvas scaler here. But first, I don't want the default image that it has. I made my own UI, so I'm going to go ahead and drag this. Whoops, I'm in the wrong spot. Before I drag it, I have to select the panel, and here you see the background is this background. So we're going to drag this right into here. One thing you're going to notice is that by default it's kind of transparent. Now I built the transparency into my ping, so I don't want to use their transparency, I want to use mine. So I'm going to click on this color. You're going to want to just leave everything at white and do your design in Photoshop for this. If I do this, it'll start making weird color integrations. All we care about is this alpha channel, so I'm just going to raise that back all the way to the top, and the transparency I have built into it will be enough. Going back to the canvas element, this is where we're gonna have to look at the way this is coming in is really problematic. And I'm gonna try typing in some different numbers to see how I can get it. And nothing is happening right here at this point, right? So we see this is not really helping us. So we're gonna go back to going higher numbers is not gonna help us. What we need is go lower numbers. So I went down to 1, and now we seem to have what we wanted. If you can't get that to work, what you could have done was actually had gone back into your panel here and played with these pixels per unit, and this is the one that we'd actually go higher with. And it would change the way that this works. So the other one goes lower, this one goes higher. Let me try this, apply, right? So it's a matter of figuring out the delicate balance between these, right? But I saw leaving this at 100 and turning this one to 1 gave me exactly what I wanted. So right now, let's position our panel so that we can see it when we open up our game scene. And so to do that, we'll just go ahead and move it this way. I'll rotate this more towards the camera. Let's see what's going on in the game. I still can't see it. So let's see, where is, whoops, that's not the one. How's that? Where can't I see it? Oh, because it's over here. I'm supposed to be putting it over there by the things, right? So let's bring that. Let's bring the rotation back here. Okay, we're starting to see it now. Yep. Let me just put it a little more. Okay, so now we should mostly see it. It'll be easy enough for me to grab it once we see it. So now we have the panel, but we need to add some other stuff, maybe some text or something, right? Let's go ahead and do that. With my canvas selected, I'm going to go to Game Object, UI, Text Mesh Pro. And so once again, you see this comes in giant right here, and that's problematic. So we need to fix that. And if we go in here, well, first thing, I'm just going to go ahead and make the text size kind of closer to where I want to be, and it's going to be way down, probably 1 here. This width and height, well, before we had 10 and 5, wasn't it? That, and then I'm going to position this 0, 0, and now it's a child of this canvas, so it'll be right in there. So now you see we're here. See, the text is still comically big. I'm going to go ahead and bring that down. I'm going to even further, you'll see this, you can size the box here. It's not related to this. I'm not exactly sure why there's 2 different systems, but right, just because I know I don't need this. Oh, actually, I'm going to change the text. So I'm going to change the text. Let's say we're working with potbelly pigs, right? For some reason, and we need a thing there. And so I'm just going to get that to where I want it, get it close enough to where you want it, right? Maybe change this, since this is like the headline. I'm going to go ahead and make it bold. And now I'm going to need more text. So the simplest way is just to duplicate the text we already have to make our lives easier. I still have the move tool selected, so I'll bring this down. This time I'll let this get a little bigger. I'll make the text size a little smaller. And I'll say the pot-belly pig is not upset. Woo! How do I do that? Okay. Not upset that he drinks too much because it gives him his pot belly, right? Sure, why not? Just some text, right? So the last thing we need to do is maybe add a little image, right? So again, I'll have my canvas selected, go up to Game Object, UI, and I'll go ahead and put in an image. Once again, we see this image is way too big. So we'll come up here and we'll make it a 1:1. Now this is where you'll have to figure out by your image an aspect ratio. But let's just get it so that it's down in the canvas. I'll double click on canvas to jump me in here. Whoops, I have the canvas selected. Oh, that's one thing to watch out for. Make sure when you ever want to move this as a whole, you have the canvas selected and not one of the parts, because you'll move the parts. But anyhow, I want to move the part, the image right here. I'm going to say my image is actually horizontal, so I'll do that. And what image do we want? I grabbed an image of a potbelly pig, of course, and I'm just going to drag it into this source image. And then I'll just go ahead and use the scale it up just slightly. Go in a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. Place it in there. So now I've got myself a nice floating information panel. I guess we could call that, right? That is there. Now obviously I can walk right through it. There's no physics no rigid body that I put on it. And to reuse these things, because you're probably going to want to use a bunch of these in your nonlinear stories, you have two options. The first one, and I already did this, so let me get rid of it, is to take your item and just simply duplicate it. I've already created a prefab out of this, so this is going to be problematic for me, but I'll just go to duplicate it, and I have this one I can drag out. Now I could change everything I could have changed before, right? I can select the text, turn it into wombat, right? And it's there. I could change that image. I can do whatever it is I want to do. The second way that you can do that is to actually create a prefab. So all you do for that is just drag it right from your window into your assets, and you'll see right here I just created a prefab. So I can just drag that out, and let me get a little bigger here and put this somewhere so that we could see it a little easier. And here it is, so that I can use. Now what's the benefit and what's the problems with these two methods? Well, on the first one you'll see that when you pulled it out, yeah, that's nice because it still has all of our specific settings, our game specific settings that we did, and then I can go in and change any of those. But if I wanted to say change the background to this one, it's not going to affect this one. Now what happens if later I do want to change the background to these? Well, the answer is to edit the prefab. So you can actually just go into a prefab and double click, and you'll be in the special editor here. And say we wanted to change that image background. So I'll go to panel, and I have this other image background, and I'll throw that in there. And so now when I go back to my scene, you'll see that the two that were based on the prefab both changed, right? I could still change this prefab's individual things, right? I can change that text to whatever, hello, right? And that doesn't change because everything you're changing in Inspector is game specific. And then when you're in this prefab editor, right, this is where we can change the position of things. Say we wanted to make that go up on top. And so then we go back to our scene and we see the changes have been made, haven't affected our duplicates, right? So you have both of those options. Which one's better? Neither. What you will know is that when we get back, when you make the prefab, if you're going the prefab route, you are going to have to go back into your panel and, into your canvas, which is the top level item, and make sure you drag that first person camera into the event camera. So those are a couple of ways for you to do this. I guarantee you'll be making some of these for your Unity project.